All righty. Hello, everyone. Hello, world. And welcome to the Collective Intelligence Block Party. This is our 7th consecutive Collective Intelligence Block Party, each of which runs for 24 hours straight. You know, we do break to go to the bathroom and get food from time to time, but nothing major. For the most part, we are go, go, go. And great to have Nolan and Brett and Emery with us. Good morning, gentlemen. How y'all doing?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be.
Awesome. And welcome, Cesare. Cesare, welcome. We are broadcasting and recording. Cesare is joining us from Poland, a beautiful town in Poland, whose name I will let Cesare mention. And Cesare, we've actually been looking forward to introducing you and Brett to each other. So this is a super cool moment. Anyway, I wanted to, and good morning, Emery. Awesome. All right. I wanted to share a little bit about my thoughts about what's going on in terms of collective intelligence on the planet. Because for me, that's a big part of how I'm doing, is how is collective intelligence doing? And if you rewind, 2 months ago and before all this corona was just transforming everything, we were kind of in a place of like, shit, what's it gonna take for people to come together and dial in and connect via video conference and just kind of loosen up and just jump into the swimming pool, jump into this brewing collective intelligence party. And now with corona, we're in a situation where everyone, in broad general terms, everyone's at home, online, dialed in. At the minimum, they're ready to jump into a Zoom video conference at any time. And so many people are doing video conferencing now that who were not before. I mean, that's an understatement. Everybody's doing video conferencing now, right?
Zoom jumped up to the #1 app on the App Store and saw over like 500,000 downloads in a day. A week ago or something like that.
Yeah. So, so that's huge right there. The second huge thing is, whereas, a few months ago, a lot of the world was still in denial about what's going on. And even if in their words they weren't speaking denial, their actions spoke denial. I would extend that to myself and everyone for the most part. Our actions spoke denial, right? But now, neither in actions nor in words is anyone speaking denial, right? Or very few people are. The closest to denial these days is people saying, oh yeah, this will all blow over in a few months and then it'll go back to normal, right? Which I kind of get a kick out of. So the bottom line is that the prerequisites that we were dreaming of in terms of getting the world plugged into collective intelligence, suddenly in a matter of weeks, these prerequisites went from not there, not in existence, to fully blown in existence. It's just like, whoa. And it's caused me and us, speaking for Nolan as well, and really, but I want everyone to embrace this, this perspective that our job is now vastly simpler than it looked a few months ago. Everyone's online, everyone's doing video conferencing to connect, and everyone's freaking out about the world. those prerequisites are freaking huge. And here's kind of how I think about it mentally. Whereas before, I was thinking that people like us are just going to have to keep beating the drum and getting more people to jump in to conversations like this. And it just felt like it was going to be too slow. The organic growth was just, short of some kind of major shock, right? And I was, and as we've been observing the climatic shocks and forest fires in Australia, wildfires here, there, and everywhere, melting of ice and all that, it's like, what's it going to take to wake people up? It took Corona. Corona woke everybody up, got everybody grounded on Zoom video conferences, talking about collapse and what we need to do about it. So I'm being a little long-winded, but let me just get to the point. So whereas before I was thinking that our job, all of us, would be to have to cultivate all these conversations and seed all these conversations and build the entire network of conversations from the ground up. My perspective now is radically different. A vast network of video conference conversations exists right now. It's already in existence. And all we need to do now is get it hyper connected in the collective superintelligence paradigm or something similar, right? And I'm seeing some chats come in. Note for me, AI.
Ignore me for now. I need to write it there.
No problem. No problem. No problem. But anyway, so for me and for us, it's just been kind of this weird, literally as recently as 3 days ago, I was talking about how frustrated I was that how long it's taking and all that. And then I just had this realization, wait a second, the network is here. The network of all these people having video conferences all the time about things that matter, in fact, is now here. So our job is simply to get it hyper-connected, right? And what does that hyper-connectivity look like?
I just want to build on what Jamin's saying. It's here enough that the New York Times has an article talking about a directory wanting these different features that would make Zoom more of a social network. Yeah, Brett.
You were breaking up a little bit for me, Nolan. Can you turn your camera off for 5 seconds and then go back and start with the New York Times? Because I didn't hear the details.
Oh, sure. I was saying the New York Times published within the past couple weeks an article about the uptick in Zoom usage because universities are switching to it. Primary education systems are switching to it because they're taking so much time away from school. And so lots of people are using it for the first time. Lots of young people are using it to host parties and social gatherings and things like that. And because of this uptick in social use, especially, people are now thinking, it's in the collective consciousness now, well, how do we find other Zoom rooms? How do we find other conversations? Like, I want to be able to see who else is throwing events like this, or, there's no easy way to do that yet. Zoom isn't really a social network. It's been very targeted at corporations. And so, yeah, so it's enough of an emerging phenomenon to be using video conferencing, but especially Zoom in particular. And just another example, yesterday, just like while I was casually making food, the two other folks I live with, one of them was on a video conference with, well, at first, both of them were on a video conference with like 6 other people, and they were both in the same house, just in different rooms. And then eventually, there were 2 calls going on at the same time, and effectively like 8 people in total, like in my space or whatever that I could hear, and was like, and that was very surreal for me. I've never had a moment quite like that. And all that is just to say, the usage of this, the conversations, exactly as Jamin's saying, they're exploding right now. And so the demand for more than just the features Zoom is currently offering, to actually make this a social network, is very high right now. Just wanted to reinforce that, but yeah.
Cool, thanks.
And before you mentioned that, Nolan, Brett had written into chat the idea of a video library of all Zooms happening. And let's get into that, because that's super exciting.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Cesare has his hand up. Go ahead, Cesare. Great to see you.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Good to see you. Actually, yeah, I've been coming to all the same conclusions. That's a few thoughts on this. First of all, I think Zoom will develop that. They're probably going to see a use for that. They will probably do that. This whole vision of, I think, what you have as collective superintelligence will probably be simply done by a corporation, and that corporation is Zoom. Maybe, but not only. It might be a good time to buy stock in Zoom. I don't know if they're a publicly traded corporation, but that might be where to put your money. Because, I mean, I'm definitely going to be helping them grow. I already subscribed. I just paid for a year subscription. I'm going to be organizing International Logic Party meetings on Zoom now. It's actually fantastic. To me, what's most interesting is doing real life meetings, bringing people together. But again, the International Logic Party has members around the world, so it will be an opportunity for them to potentially finally join us. We'll see. I'll see how easy or how difficult it is for people to join. But so yeah, I'm already doing collective superintelligence. Like I'm making that happen. And that's the thing. I think that the biggest thing is having a depository or a listing of all the things that are happening. And one thing I've also, I've been a fan of Eventbrite to organize events. It makes your events look more professional. Potentially, if Zoom does not start to organize itself, potentially people might use things like Eventbrite. Because yeah, I posted my events. I said that it's online. And then I try to see how easy it is to find it. And it seems like there's like at least 1,200 events, going on a date that I'm organizing my meeting. So the chance that someone is going to find my event is pretty small. But then again, maybe someone will stumble it. For all the thousands of people scrolling through it, maybe they will find my events and they'll stumble into a total stranger. They'll get interested by the concept of controlling your government. So yeah, so maybe Eventbrite will be a way to bring all of that together. Yeah, but I'm also looking for something that does this kind of thing. And yeah, because I think Eventbrite, a lot of those are closed, or let's say business oriented events. Maybe it's companies having their meetings, or maybe, I don't know. I don't know what kind of events are on there, what kind of online events are on Eventbrite, and whether they are for Zoom. But maybe it would be good to set some kind of a culture, start building some kind of culture that if you want to have a Zoom, let's say collective superintelligence kind of meeting, that whenever you create that you could use Eventbrite to organize that, and that all of the events start with, like, let's say Zoom, or let's say CSI. Maybe that should be the name, collective, CSI. And so anyone who's interested in actually having an intellectual discussion rather than, because I think a lot of those events that are happening on Eventbrite are probably, I don't know, like yoga sessions or just they're like commercial things, you know, somebody's offering a product, they want people to subscribe. But for people to actually be doing discussions and communicating, that's probably different. And so that probably should have its own, like I said, hashtag or like prefix or whatever. And so maybe that might be the most that we can do as far as kind of creating, bringing people together through that. I think that could be done. I think if that's something that we do, I think it should be marketed. I mean, ultimately, a lot of this is, I mean, yeah, I definitely want to do good in the world and advance ideas, but I also want to make money from it. I'm not trying this to go broke. So yeah, so there's always, and frankly, if you're not thinking of how to make money from this, you're probably not looking for the right solutions anyways. People who ignore the money factor do not actually arrive at the real solutions.
Let's dive into that at some point.
What's that?
Let's dive into that at some point. I would like to, because I don't have a lot of resonance with that, but I respect the perspective. So I'd like to have a little bit of a group exploration at some point around that.
And so, yeah, and so I think if we were to start promoting some kind of a, like I said, initiative to have any kind of discussion, open discussion, then it should be like a tag that we could later capitalize on. So whether that's like a name, or maybe it's Radish, maybe that would be it. You know, so people look up, oh, Radish, and then they go to the website, and then you get a whole lot of hits on the website, and then you develop the website for well, for something else. I don't know. Fuck, I don't know. But like I said, building some kind of a brand, even if it's using other people's technology. So I think that's all I got. Very good, very good. Well, let's keep it flowing. We got a lot of good ideas on the table. Brett is in the queue, followed by Jamin. All right, take it away, Brett.
What excites me most about the Zoom call thing is AI. Now, I don't know a lot about AI, so one question I have is, does anyone right here, right now on this call with us have any expertise or background knowledge around, I think you do, Jamin, yeah, I thought so, on AI. Second of all, I would want to put on the list, can we have another, or put in next week like a block in and see if we can even convene, if you know other people, Jamin, that could actually speak on AI. I want to, like, from the action perspective, which I'm not always into, I'm into both, you know, this feminine and active, but on this point, I'm like, I don't want to wait. It seems to me, and this relates to the axe metaphor you gave a couple weeks ago of honing the axe, Jamin. I understand, like, what Cesare, how do I pronounce it? Is it Cesare? How do I pronounce that accurately?
Cesare, and I'm in Wrocław.
Cesare. I understand all of those things, and they sound possible, feasible, reasonable to me. From the axe metaphor, the perspective, which was honing the axe for whatever, 5 hours, and then chopping down the tree. For me, AI is the axe. And this could be totally naive because I don't understand it, so that I want to be totally transparent that I'm actually more in exploration and inquiry than understanding. But from the layman's perspective, I'm like, dude, if everyone who simply had a Zoom conversation had, let's say, the website or the branding space where you could opt in to say, yes, I want to make, and it's not on YouTube, it has to be something else or something, but it's like, yes, we just had this Zoom call, we want to opt in to the Collective Intelligence Library, whatever that is, understanding that we have a cooperatively owned AI or something like that, so it's not Skynet. I don't know how that works yet without having the conversation. You know, the AI is basically charged with learning from all of these conversations, however that works, keywords, tags, and it actually creates all of the like, why would I don't want to go on a website or search for anything. I want to come onto this Collective Intelligence website And even I want it to work like Alexa, by the way. I don't even want to type. And if Alexa fucking works to order something, I don't understand why Alexas or something, I can't just come onto my laptop and say, Radish, tell me which video to watch about solar radiation management and tell me who to connect with. And I can't understand, you know, and I'm totally naive. I totally admit that. If the government's doing what they're doing and IBM is playing Watson and all of these companies are building AI and Elon Musk to do all sorts of weird shit to me that makes no sense or is completely self-serving, why can not a bunch of smart people like us gather some AI specialists and just bootstrap some kind of initiative right away and at least try it? I mean, I'm not saying it will work, but I just think AI and voice recognition is the axe, because I don't think people are going to go on Eventbrite or anything like you're saying and actually search and find. I think we actually need a matching technology to match the intentions we have and these desires we have to transcend things and to co-create and to share and to make radical trim tab like innovations. I think the Zoom, if they put a lot of money into a social network in Zoom, that would be super helpful. I don't like the idea of waiting for a company or then they control all of their data and all that when we have blockchains and holochain and all that. Some of that stuff's not ready to scale, so we'd have to take little bite-sized things first. But yeah, anyway, I'm excited about something like that. And I would like to have some blocks next Fridays or every Friday where we have a sort of almost working session. Like, how do we just pull these people together that know how to code AI? And we can use our videos as an example. We have tons of now 24-hour blocks. Let the AI start learning from our conversations and other videos I have that I'll opt into. I know plenty of people that would opt into all of that through transparency, and it can't be that hard. So, Jamin, tell me a little bit about the actual reality of AI compared to my, boy in the basement version of what could happen.
Totally. First of all, I want to congratulate you and Cesare, I see you got your hand up. I'll speak for a little bit, then I'll pass you the baton. And let's keep it flowing because we actually have the kind of the perfect set of people in this room right now. So if there were an AI, right, its job would be to link up people like us, combinations of people exactly like us. And I congratulate you, Brett, because what you've just articulated sums up in a very tight nutshell about half of our thinking around Radish and collective superintelligence over the last 8 months. Ask Nolan. I mean, the amount of hours that we've spent sucking on a bong and talking about exactly these kinds of scenarios cannot be, it would be hard to count. Anyway, so I love that we're all like harmonizing on the same thing. And also what you've articulated in my mind is the missing link between where we are now and a future of exponentially growing collective superintelligence. And the exact quote, I just looked it up because I want to get the quote right. It's from Abraham Lincoln. And he said, if I had 6 hours to chop down a tree, I would spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe. And then I just have to, okay, gotcha. Okay, so Brett's back in the queue. Awesome. There's another saying that has to do with axes, which comes from China. And it goes like from ancient, wisdom. And it goes, it takes one axe to make another axe. And what's really meant is it takes one axe to make a better axe. And then that better axe can make a better axe. And so the question is, where do we start? What's our starter axe? I'm all about what you're saying, Brett. Let's just bring in the experts and just, do it. But there's a lot of architecting and design behind the doing it. That's what separates good software from bad software. And so I'm just going to leave a thought of 3 possible ways to start, and then I'll pass it to Cesare, and then Brett is after Cesare. The 3 possible ways to start, and it could be a combination of all 3, or it could be these 3 and more. But the usual suspects, to quote Melissa's grandfather, Howard Koch, who wrote Casablanca, to quote Howard Koch, let's round up the usual suspects. The usual suspects are a directory, as Cesare was indicating. Hey, can't there just be a directory, by category? Why not, right? A second kind of obvious way to start, usual suspect, is search. How about a search engine where I just type in and search? Now, Alexa is sort of an extension of search because it gives you the ability to basically speak into it rather than type into it. But fundamentally behind it, the technology is pretty much exactly the same. And then the third usual suspect is a social network. Hey, I like talking about collective intelligence. So does Cesare, so does Brett. Well, let's make friends, and then I'll follow them and they can follow me and we can organize meetings together and all that great stuff. All right, we got 3 very smart people in the queue. Cesare, followed by Brett, followed by Nolan. Go ahead, Cesare.
Okay, so to answer your question, Brett, about how realistic is that, I'd say it's very, very unrealistic. What you're talking about takes a lot of money. Like, you don't just get, hey, let's get a few programmers. Let's talk to some programmers and tell them our cool idea. And because, yeah, maybe you will get lucky and you will find someone who's going to help you develop that. But frankly, unless you have hundreds of thousands of dollars, especially when it comes to AI, yeah, you're not going to get people working on your idea. Let me just tell you that, because that's what I've been through. Well, I mean, you know what, Jamin, maybe you have connections. Yeah, you come from that industry, so I suppose with you it's a different story. But that's not what I've lived through. So, for me, it's not easy getting people to try this idea, and then of course you're going to be competing. It's not like we're the only ones thinking about this. There are all kinds of people already thinking about that, with money already moving in that direction, with people already working on that. So you got to keep that in mind. I think your better chances are of creating a community that will exist within the technology that somebody else will create. So, somebody created Facebook, and then Facebook created an environment where all these different Facebook groups could come about. And then there are groups with tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. As far as I know, like 30,000, those are the biggest groups that I've ever been a part of, 10 to 30,000. So I think to create that kind of community, and I think the earlier that you start on that, and maybe, yeah, you have some optimized technology, some ideas for optimized technology that you could then further use within that community. But then you could, when you do build that community, then you can try to get those resources to implement some technology ideas. But so what I guess what I'm saying is that the ideas you have, it's probably already a lost battle. What you're talking about is already in the works. Some other people with much bigger capital and much bigger resource and talent pools that are already working on that. I think what you got to focus more is on the next step, and have an early start on what's going to be the environment that will create, and what are the community and networks that you will be able to create within that environment. Because this shit's expensive, man. You're talking about AI. I don't know much about AI. I'll admit that. I'm more. I think ultimately it's about people. AI is just a tool for people, and I think you got to be. You can. I think. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is just what I deal with. But I think a simple algorithm and a simple set of rules that are used by a large number of people can be better and more effective than AI. It can be cheaper. A culture that's learned by a lot of people, which is, in a way, that is a type of intelligence, a culture. So I think that's what you should be focusing on, and slowly building the resources that it might take to actually hire technical people who will be able to then implement maybe some kind of higher level AI. But it's just expensive. So I think that would be very expensive. And unless Jamin can find people who are willing to work for next to nothing, then it's going to be very, very impossible.
All right. Well, I can't wait to respond to a lot of the things that you said because I have a totally different paradigm, and I love hearing everyone's paradigm. Everyone's in the queue right now, and so I'm wondering, should we go to maybe 2-minute intervals to kind of keep it moving? How are people feeling about a shot? And how that would work is I would just keep the time, keep track. No one says no. Let people talk. Okay, let's.
I would go the middle path of like, let's try to be mindful. So it's like, it's not, it doesn't have to be 2 minutes, but let's just all be mindful that you'll have another chance to speak. So it's not like one of us won't have the chance to get out something. So we can always pass the baton quicker than we might if we felt pressured that we wouldn't have an opportunity. So maybe we can try that.
I totally.
And I personally don't mind having the actual clock, so I'm aware of how long I've been speaking, and then I just have the domain to continue, basically. But
Exactly.
yeah.
Let's do that. So I'll just hold up. So if you've been going for 3 minutes, I'll hold up 3, 4, etc. But at no point do you get the real yank.
let's give it a shot. I mean, anyway.
Okay, and you're next in the queue, Brett. So go for it.
Well, I'm excited. It's interesting. Like you said, it's a chance for me and Cesare. I'm sorry if I mess your name up. I actually have an issue with foreign languages in general, like hearing and speaking foreign languages. So it's going to take me a while to properly pronounce your name, Cesare, if I'm not doing it. Or I might pronounce it 3 different ways, 3 different times, even if it seems I've got it right. It's just a weird thing I have with foreign languages. I don't speak them well or learn them well. And it applies to names too.
Don't worry about it. Just say what you were going to say.
Yeah. So it's good that we got to meet because we have, these different and similar experiences. So some background is I've been living in basically a GIF co-creative paradigm for 7 years, traveling the planet a little bit and working on some socio-technologies and processes and a pretty like super ambitious, I would say we make a moonshot look like kindergarten. So we're really in it to win it, like super idealist, super utopian, super ambitious, super futuristic, but we also get shit done too. We're not also just not doing anything. So in that regards, I've been on both sides of the fence that you're talking about, which is one, we have been able to inspire people to give forward, we say, instead of pay forward, to give forward skills and time and resources in order to contribute to something that's greater than they could do alone, just because they have the motivation, passion, and purpose, and they don't really give a fuck about other things, so to say. We also look for people that don't martyr themselves and just, give without receiving on some level, either from somewhere else or from the group that they're giving to. So we care about health and things like that, which is a thing we've learned. Like people shouldn't be martyrs or, not putting their own oxygen mask on, et cetera, et cetera. So we've had the experience on one hand of people doing the gifting to a greater cause, let's say, and it would be nice at any one moment if we would have had 20, 30, 40, $50 million. And really, our project is a $4 billion project, considering all the things that we wanted to do. It's like WeWork. We want to have hubs everywhere. We want to have technology that's the greatest technology on the planet. So yes, I totally get the conundrum of funding things and people's needs and how they're not able to really contribute if they're not paying their rent and their kids are not taken care of, et cetera, et cetera. So that's something we can continue all talking about, but just to let you know, I've been on both sides of that fence. So I'm not unable or opposed to going for the gifting or inspiring people to do that. And I'm also interested in finding ways to methodically magnetize the resources so that it's maybe more easy or optimal to get people to want to participate because they have their needs met on the physical material plane. So I get both sides of that fence. Other than that, I just wanted to share that just as some context and background just between friends so we have a better idea of like where we're coming from and that I'm into technology, so to say. I'm not a technologist like zeros and ones, but I'm part of a technology related project. And there's a million things I want to do with that AI and like with the information, like with our, Jamin's seen some of our tech and Nolan, but really I still feel like it's the information. So I'm still curious about what AI can do, and building on what Cesare shared, like do we need people to put in thousands and thousands of hours, or could we somehow kick off something and then let the AI? I have an infantile fantasy that AI, once it gets going, will bootstrap itself, and it doesn't really require, a team of 40 people per se. But I don't know anything about that, so I'm just going to pass it on just pass that on. Oh, Jamin, by the way, when I'm on with you and you're speaking, I will let you know like who's in queue, so you don't have to keep looking at the chat. Like, I'll just take over for you as host, so you don't have to like be distracted by the chat or say this. Like, I'll help you catch up. Like,
Good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's very sweet of you. Thank you, Brett. Appreciate that. All righty. So next in the queue is Nolan, followed by Jamin, followed by Emery. So Nolan, go for it.
Sure. Well, just to respond to what you were saying at the end there, Brett, the incredible opportunity we have with, as Cesare was pointing out, with building this community is that we, with a little bootstrapped thing that a very small team could put together, could generate a database, and from that database, an artificial intelligence that, at least publicly, has not existed, and I have a hard time imagining exist, and here's why. Because the situation we're in now, where we have a bunch of different characters across different conversations, different contexts, but across long amounts of time, matters of months, we have all these different characters in different conversations switching back and forth. We've never had recorded conversation quite like that. And so part of the point I'm making is there's a big difference between a university saying, hey, we want to experiment with some artificial intelligence in the realm of natural language processing. So we're going to round up 50 volunteers and then ask them to talk about, subjects we give them or whatever, but it's in a laboratory and it's fake. There's a big difference between that and what we're doing, which is having real conversations about things that are happening now that we care about and that we're invested in. And every one of us, everyone at the table here and who's ever at the table, they're all like real agents that care about the conversations that are happening. And there's all of this cross-referencing going on and us evolving together over time. And so just that data set is unprecedented, which means that the AI, like you're saying, Brett, the AI that comes out of that is unprecedented. So, and with like Siri or with Alexa, those are they can transcribe what you're saying, which is not a special thing for either Siri or Alexa, and they can respond to specific requests, but they're actually super weak forms. Some people would not even call them AI. But I think that the data set we're generating here would generate real AI compared to Alexa or Siri, because Alexa or Siri doesn't have all this context and all this like rich content that we're already generating and going to generate more of. And so that's where I think Cesare is onto something when he says that the real opportunity is in developing the community, because if some nerds put together the technology and nobody's there to use it, or they use, just kind of some lame conversations, it doesn't really catch on, people aren't that invested. I mean, with AI, it can be, just for a little bit of background, I know I'm going kind of long here, and I'll try to wrap up here soon. For a little background on me, I studied computer science for a few years at the University of Washington, have some experience in artificial intelligence and machine learning, definitely not an expert, but I have friends that are working in the field. And Cesare was talking about, I can't remember exactly how you put it, rules or protocols or procedures or something like that. Basically, you were saying, you're kind of saying good software is all we really need, rather than some super advanced AI. And I would agree with you. And to help, people that are less familiar with AI, it seems magical, but it really is designed. They're rule sets, and so I guess the last thing I'll say is just, I think I truly believe there is a lot that we can do with a relatively very small number of people and limited resources in the beginning. And we're building the community. And I think Cesare was right on with that. So I'll hand it off to Jamin.
Alrighty, very good. Jamin is next, followed by Emery, followed by Brett. Love this conversation. Absolutely amazing. Cesare, I want to comment on something you said. Now, and this is something, every once in a while I'll find some smart person who just really knows how to push my buttons. Not that they're trying to push my buttons, mind you, right? But and that's actually a big compliment. If someone can push my buttons, it means wow. All right. And so Cesare, you're pushing my buttons, and I'm going to say this in the most loving way. I love you. I got to say that in advance. I love you, and I want to spend my life talking with you. And that's not a proposal. So Melissa, don't freak out. So having said all that, I get like irked by some of the things you're saying, because and see, Cesare, since he can put together pieces, you're just really good at like seeing possible futures. And I think the Achilles heel of that is that if you see this one future and say, oh, well, that's the way it's going to happen. Some big tech company is going to do this, and you guys can't outcompete them and all that, and da-da-da-da. And that's what irks me, because whenever I feel like someone's shutting down possibilities that I think are really important, it kind of irks me a little bit. Anyway, I just wanted to get that off my chest. Okay. Secondly, because I do totally see this as happening. It's interesting whenever some big tech company goes out and does something big, or a startup starts and creates something like a Facebook or a Google that becomes really big. Number one, that started with a couple of folks in a garage or in a dorm room. So it's totally possible to do transformational web services starting from, very little resources. And also particularly in this case, it's not just about having the right technology to be able to search for stuff. It's certainly true. If Zoom got out there right now and got the jump on this, obviously they've got a massive advantage. Even any of the big tech companies would have a huge advantage. But in my experience, something like this is such a confluence between technology, community, culture, perspectives. You know, the block party, for example, is very, very unique. There aren't a lot of block parties happening that I know of. It may be the only one of its kind that's just ultra long format and that has the focus that we have. But anyway, all that is to say is that I see tremendous value in us pioneering something, and then either we then partner with a big tech company, or they reverse engineer, copy, do what we're doing and do it way better. And if that's the pathway, great. I don't mind at all being scooped, being copied, et cetera, because my biggest concern is that this happen in the world. So rather than talk about, oh, this path is possible and that's not possible, for me, it's all possible. And let's explore, you know, what makes sense for us to focus on right now. And yes, consider all these different possible pathways, but not shut any doors. That's just my personal preference. And if you think about, hey, Michael, welcome, Michael. I don't know if you've been watching the streaming, but we're having a really awesome conversation and you're going to fit right in. So I'll let you just kind of catch up. But we're talking about, what we're basically talking about is putting together collective superintelligence and using AI as a part of it. You know, so let's talk about one possible pathway that this could come about. So in planning for this kind of thing, you know, we play around with different brands and concepts, and we're building a brand. We've got all the domain names and whatnot. And the brand is Snack Bar, S-N-A-C. So it's snack without a K. So just S-N-A-C, not S-N-A-C-K. Snack Bar. And snack stands for the social network of actual conversations, subtext about things that matter, like saving life on Earth, basically what we're doing right here, this kind of thing. And so we could start out simple with no AI, right? And just have like literally a directory by category. You know, what issues do you want to talk about, right? Because for me, there's a big 4 or a big 5 that are just totally immediate. Coronavirus, ending world hunger, veganism, cooling the planet, collective superintelligence itself, and there's a few others, right? But these are just, and so, you know, and then, so categorized by major category and even subcategory, and then just the title of the talk itself, people could be able to browse. No AI, not even search. So that's the simplest way to start. And we're in serious conversations about doing exactly that. Just finding the conversations like this one that are happening, that are public, that want more people to join, and that really want to do this dance with us and the rest of the community that wants to dance. Start with that. Pure directory. And then go from there. Where could we go from there? Well, we've already got the capability to transcribe. It's not perfect, but it's good. We could then use Google's search, which is the gold standard. Use Google search on those transcripts. In other words, like a site search sort of, you know, feature. And so we wouldn't even have to code up any of our AI, but it expands people's ability beyond just using the directory function. They could search leveraging, you know, all the transcript database and more closely hone in on what they're looking for. So anyway, I just wanted to put those ideas on the table, and I'd love for us to creatively brainstorm how we might move forward. We've got Emery in the queue, followed by Brett, followed by Cesari. So, Emery, please take it away.
Good morning, everybody. Just want to acknowledge everyone and say that it's nice to see everybody here, and appreciate what's being spoken about, and all your input so far is very interesting. I myself have a few observations so far, and I'll just lay that out here for as best as I can. I personally, I'm wondering whether or not we all use our social networks effectively. This is a problematic thing. Not everyone is capable of using the platforms effectively. Okay, and that's an issue that needs to be resolved. And when you speak about Facebook, there's already such a tremendous amount of organizations, groups, and public, private. It's really overwhelming to even go through and see what you may want to participate in, what's interesting, what's not. So that's an issue. I think when it comes to AI, AI at some point needs to be able to narrow down the perspective of what the priority, what the main priorities are that, we as a collective are striving to meet. Now, what else can I say? I don't know. I'm just overwhelmed by the conversation. I got so many points here that I've taken down and are very interesting to speak about. I did want to ask Brett something about his platform. I really loved it, and I think it's fantastic what you've been able to accomplish. I made a suggestion. I made a comment previously saying that, geez, it reminds me of a Google Earth, and maybe it could transform to that direction where you can actually, zoom in onto different locations on the planet. Very interesting. And maybe you can let me know. It's still an alpha? Is there any way to try it out at all? I was looking for a way to get in there and just play around with it to see what's possible. That's it for now. I got more comments, but I'll just keep it simple for now. Thanks.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Emery. Well, right on cue is Brett to answer those questions, followed by Cesari. Go ahead, Brett.
Thank you, Jamin. Thank you, Emery. I'm just going to throw out a couple thoughts on a few things to tie a few loose ends up for me. For me, the opening remarks, Jamin, you had about what the coronavirus may be presenting us is pretty much a pretty critical, relevant piece of the pie of people potentially being able to gift or contribute to something without the big funding because people are actually home or they've lost their jobs or they're not getting paid or they're getting Social Security or they're going to get a stimulus package, blah, blah, blah. I don't really know what the answer to that is, but it's clearly like much more fertile ground now for that to happen than there was a month ago. And who knows if that'll last. It might just be a temporary thing, but clearly that is a relevant piece of information. There's people right now sitting around who actually have the skills to do stuff that might be open and able to do something they wouldn't have normally have done. And that's just a fact of life at the moment. I don't know if that'll be worth two salts, 2 weeks from now or something. Related to what I think Nolan was speaking a little bit to about, I'm not fully paraphrasing you, Nolan, or every idea you were talking about. I'm just picking a little piece out of, I think, of what you were sharing and putting my own spin on it, which is there's an emergence factor and a unique factor to our group and other groups that can't be paid for or bought or replicated by technology. So it doesn't matter to me if Elon Musk or Google spends 20 gazillion dollars building an AI, and then the only people using it are the people that go shopping or to make better weapons or something like that. We have a weapon of emergence, of intelligence, of what of mass co-creation, and that is like 1+1 = 3 to me. That's like the synergy and emergence and novelty. So we can't forget anyway that we're bringing something to the table of that equation that is completely unique in all of existence, and everyone is doing that as a sovereign being. And I look at it like transcending and including competition, which is again pointing a little bit to what you're talking about, Jamin. So I mean, the etymology of competition is to strive together. So in the highest aspirational form, and I've had moments like you, Jamin, where I get triggered in the past or even in the conversation. So I resonate with that, with these things. But really, when I try to be in a higher perspective, we're striving together with the military, even with the cabal, with Google, with people with more money than we could ever dream of. If we're competing, let's at least be striving together, and we'll see what plays out. But I'm not. There's just no amount of money to me that could compete with originality and heart and intelligence. So I think we can still do what we want to do, even if we're behind a proverbial 8 ball, or even if we're the proverbial David and Goliath situation. It's certainly, at least on a personal, not going to stop me. It never did, and it never will. Everything you've said, though, is reasonable, relevant, and something to be considered wisdom. So I'm not pushing back on that whatsoever, and I am doing my best to learn from it and be open to every suggestion you've brought about, even if it's not my like personal perspective or frequency. So I appreciate that. And Emory, unfortunately, we had a prototype online, and it's offline right now. And just to be again transparent and fair, it has to do with money a little bit. Like the fact that we didn't even have enough money, ran out of money to pay for the servers, and one of our core technologists couldn't meet his needs through the project right now, created other potential tensions. So that's a reality too. So Emory, I don't have the alpha at the moment for you to sign up to and play with, unfortunately. I think sooner than later we're going to have a couple different versions of the software. We're still in discussions and figuring out what's open source, what's not, and how we're going about, because we're going through some changes in our project. So I'm glad that will be in the next few weeks or something, not months down the line. And that will be a big difference for how people can use it or potentially make it better, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll have some updates in a few weeks, I hope, or sooner on some of that. And the last thing is I have to go get something to eat. So I'm going to stay here for a few more minutes just to hear any other last related thoughts. I'll get something to eat. I'll probably just come right back and listen while I'm eating, but I'm just saying I'll disappear for at least a couple of minutes just to get the actual food. So thanks for listening, guys.
Awesome, Brett. Great stuff. And welcome, Eddie. And Cesare is in the queue, followed by Jamin. So feel free to put yourself in the queue at any time, either by raising your hand electronically, as Cesare is modeling, or just wave or whatever. All right, Cesare, go for it.
What you're talking about doing is something I'm already doing. That's a problem, and my budget is very limited, and I'm making it happen. I am doing super intelligence. That's exactly what my system does. You're talking about solving the world's problems. These are political issues. Like, that's all politics. People have to come to a compromise on how they will allocate their resources. People have to make decisions. That's what we do. I'm building a political party where we use a stock market for ideas, where each person makes an individual decision about various ideas. We aggregate that information to show what people think together, and then we nominate candidates who represent what the people want, who will actually carry out those decisions. It doesn't use AI, it just uses an algorithm. It costs $5,000 to implement approximately. This really functions at the level of superintelligence, but this is politics, and what you're talking about is politics, and you actually have to just start to do it. Our system allows you to start doing that now. That opportunity is open to you. The only aspect of that, or I see possible expansion, is including this type of communication that we're doing into things that are other than politics. That's where you can say it's collective superintelligence as opposed to just superintelligence. That's the opportunity, I think, for this group to do that. Because what I'm trying to tell you is I'm working on putting you out of business. And it's working. It's happening. We're doing that. I'm organizing a meeting.
Putting who out of business?
You.
But how can you put somebody out of business that's not in business, my friend?
You'll see what I mean.
Well, I mean, I will see what you mean.
Yeah, all right. Let me make my point.
But just so you're aware, I mean, you're coming off as quite, closed-minded and arrogant.
Well, I'm trying to save you some time, because here it is.
Because you know more than we do, I guess, right?
No, what I'm trying to tell you is right here. I just sent it in the comments. This is a meeting. This is a Zoom meeting session that you are all welcome to attend and participate in to see what
I'll check it out.
People doing real politics, doing real intelligent democracy. That's available to you. This is a meeting that I am promoting. I will be promoting. I have interns working for me now who are also promoting this. We're building a YouTube channel, YouTube content with guests, people participating in this kind of communication. The kind of communication you're talking about, we're making that happen, about real consequential things, about real content. Not the opportunity for you there is to take this information, like I said, because this could still be a smaller system within an even larger macro system. The opportunity for this group is how to take this information and to incorporate it into something bigger. So how are we going to do that? Because otherwise, solving world's problem, frankly, I think I don't want to get into that, but the whole coronavirus, to me, that's passé. But the climate situation and animal liberation and inequality and all this other stuff, all this tyranny, world hunger, those are still problems that are going to need to be solved. They're going to need to be solved politically. Our system enables people to do that. That's what we're working on. Maybe there are some non-political things to be discussed, but how are we going to take this information and to put that into an even bigger system? Because if you can't take this, because this is real content. This is real content for you to take and do something with it. How are you going to make that more accessible to more people? I mean, yes, I'm asking you, and how can you help me promote my event? Because essentially that's what you're talking about, is making events like this more accessible to more people. So how can you help me promote my event? And then how can you find other people who are also doing similar things to what I'm doing, and how can you help them promote their events? So maybe the right place to start is just about, finding all of these content creators and helping them. Start actually helping people. And then when you have like a network of, let's say, 2, 3, 5, 10, 15, maybe 20, maybe even 100 content creators, then you can be like, okay, now we need a system for organizing this information that's much better. And before you jump into AI, because again, we're talking about, solutions that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially. First of all, how can you do that with manual labor? Second of all, how can you do that with some automation, some cheap automation? Then when you can, then you scale, and then you keep doing that. So instead of having these big apps, let's do something amazing, let's do something huge. No, start doing something good, small, and then grow it. And this is a building block that you can begin with. There are, potentially seek out other content creators, find them. Let's put this together and let's share that with more people. And then the solution for how to, like I said, well, I'm repeating myself now, but then the automation factor and the AI potentially will come about.
Love it. Awesome. All righty. Well, we've got Jamin in the queue, and no one is in the queue after Jamin. So this is a great time to get in the queue if you'd like to talk. Cesare, as usual, a couple things you said earlier on there irked me a little bit. I'm going to put you out of business and all this stuff. I'm learning to laugh with it rather than get frustrated. But what you said at the end there, the last 2/3 of what you said, love it. Absolutely love it. And in fact, that could be kind of a way to move forward from here, is to say, let's find, and now I'm going to mash up a little bit what you said at the tail end and what Brett said about, I'll just consolidate it into the term secret sauce. People having conversations like this, which fall into the category of the secret sauce that we're co-creating here, which is centered around collective superintelligence, saving life on Earth, radical transformation, all this stuff that, to paraphrase Brett, money cannot buy. Find all the people like us who are having conversations like this one, right? And put them into a directory, put them into a snack bar or wherever we're going to put it. Just as you said, Cesare, start it off simple, promote them all. Say, look, and, organize it by category, by whatever. And then organically, incrementally throw in the ability to search in the database of transcripts, et cetera. So I think you hit the nail on the head, Cesare, of how we can get this thing started. Very organically, very bootstrappy. And also, as we do this outreach and bring them into the directory, of course, we're going to communicate to them and say, hey, we just put you in our directory. We love what you're doing so much that we're putting you into this community and directory and et cetera to promote what you're doing. We'd love to meet with you. We have block parties every Friday. We do this, we do that. We'd love to come to your meeting as well, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's one really great way to start. All righty. Michael is next in the queue and followed.
There's something to add on.
Yeah, go ahead, Nolan. Mm-hmm.
Is that even before this directory, which could be bogglingly huge overnight if people found out about it and were actually dumping in all the conversations and referencing all the conversations that are going on. Even before that, we're already developing this. I don't even know how many people we have, that have been in and out of the block party, the Solution Club. The Solution Club's been going on for years now. There's all these folks that haven't, like Gosney, he could show up today and change the game, I guess the point I'm making is before the directory, there's this community and communicating that these different conversations are going on, that is hosting this International Logic Party meeting. So that's, and I guess I'm just reinforcing a point you made earlier, Cesare, which is the real opportunities in the community. And that's my quick add-on.
Okay, beautiful. Awesome. All right. Again, Michael is next in the queue, and no one else is in the queue after Michael. So if you want to get in the queue, now's a good time. Michael, great to see you. And by the way, welcome Uncle Frank, who joined.
Thanks for having me. I'm going to pop in and out. I think today I have a doctor's appointment in an hour, so I'm going to jump off in just a minute. And first, I wanted to just say thank you. Last time I was on with you guys, it might have been Nolan. Somebody put up a link to the YouTube interview with the ex-CIA guy and Tom Atlee. And so I watched that, and I really loved it. And the reason I loved it is because when I worked with the Pachamama Alliance, I was training to be a facilitator. We did some readings. My favorite reading from that training was the story of the Peace March. And I don't know if you guys are all familiar with it, but it's such a beautiful example of emergent collective intelligence. And he told that story right in the beginning of the interview. He used that story in the introduction to one of his books. And it's literally about how they set up a podium in a barn while it was raining, and everybody just took turns speaking their mind. And he observed, and he said, I realized I would have a thought, and then the next speaker would say the thing I was thinking of. And then the rain stopped. They take down the podium and they all go back to their march. They made no decisions. They had no votes, and they had no process. But when they finished doing that, the answer to the issue that they were discussing emerged from the process. And it's a beautiful story of collective intelligence. It was my favorite reading, and it just so happens that that YouTube interview featured Tom Atlee telling that story in his own words. It's so really great, and maybe I can find it and post it on the chat here now that I brought it up again. So I just want to say thank you to whoever posted that. Was it you, Nolan? Do you remember? Yeah. So thank you so much for that. And I'll just, using that lens, things that these conversations, so much of the conversations we're having on these Zoom meetings, we're so conditioned we're so limited by old conditioning. The idea of putting somebody out of business, or putting that lens on a business on this effort is really an old conditioning, and we're in a new world, and I don't think there's any going back. And one of the things we need to try to hold dear is the fact that, if you're awake, we're helping hospice out these old systems that are so destructive anyway. And we're also at the same time midwifing in something much more beautiful, and if we can allow it, and if we can imagine it. And as Charles Eisenstein says, the more beautiful world our heart knows is possible. And I would suggest that letting that lead is really what we need to do all the time. And yeah, we can talk it out, and our words are going to represent this old conditioning, but allow part of your consciousness to recognize that you're just being limited by the words and thoughts and frameworks that you were taught all your life, that are deeply embedded in your consciousness and your subconsciousness. And there's so much more, and that's what we need to get out of the way for, and let it emerge from this process of collective intelligence. So that's all I wanted to throw out there. Just it's a perspective to maintain, and I love the idea of, honestly, small wins are so necessary. We can have big ideas and we can talk big. We got to have small wins too. I, for one, want to know how I can be down on the water in New London, Connecticut, sliding mirrors into the water and having them towed out to wherever they're going to be going. I mean, I'm most interested in SRM. I think it's the thing that we need, that needs the most immediate attention, and we don't have time to think about it. We got to start putting these things out there, reflecting heat. So, and obviously the virus, and that whole thing about vegan meals is brilliant. As a way to counter what's emerging. So thank you for that. And so I'm going to listen a little bit more, and then probably drop off and be back a little bit later. Thanks, guys.
Awesome, Michael. So wonderful to have you here and hear your perspectives and hear your spirit. See, this is part of that, I'm just going to call it intangible secret sauce that we're creating here. That's kind of hard to actually put your finger on, right? And because I could, let's just say we put out a call to the world. Hey, everyone who wants to save life on Earth. Well, 8 billion hands are going to go up, right? But what we're creating here, so it's not just about that.
Yeah, actually, let me add one thing to that. I remember bringing up recently the idea of systems thinking, to a group, and the idea that if it's really systems, it's not thinking. It's more like a systems perspective. It's more like being. So putting your finger on it is sort of that rational idea that we can articulate it and fit it into some static thought. And systems perspective is about being whole and not only just being rational, but being in your heart and in your body, all at the same time in a very dynamic way, and not just the static thought that doesn't really go anywhere.
Beautiful. Well, I want to welcome everyone who's joined. Welcome, Charlie. Welcome, James. We now have 4 different European countries in the house: Ireland, England, Poland, and Switzerland. And then we've got Canada. So we're quite international. And love to hear from everyone. James, how you doing there, bro? James?
Damon.
Yes. Hey, Charlie.
Hey.
Yeah.
I just want to quickly chime in, and I'm going to come back in a while. I'm trying to get myself in the shower and go out and catch some sun. I wanted to share this brand new song of Bob Dylan. It's actually not a brand new song, but it just came out for the first time. His first tune in years. It was released last night, just after midnight. It's 17 minutes, everyone. And wow, it's just incredible meditation, epic. And that's about all I want to say. Check it out. It's called Murder Most Foul.
Murder Most what?
Murder Most Foul.
Murder Most Foul.
Yeah. And it's in particular, but also using as a metaphor, the assassination of John Kennedy. So, okay, I'll come back at some point later. Much love.
Awesome, Charlie. Love you too, bro. Look forward to seeing you soon. All righty. And yeah, what an amazing conversation we've got cooking up right now. And whew, I kind of want to recap a little bit. So, we're basically talking about, to put it in the simplest terms, there's a bunch of conversations happening every day that are like this one, right? In the sense that we're taking a holistic, radical approach that spans the spiritual, the material, the philosophical, the political, the information technologies, AI, et cetera, all the good sci-fi stuff. It spans all of that. And it says, rightly so, that we are right at the cusp of making a phase transition, right? That involves technology, and it involves all these other elements. And that no matter how you slice it, video conference conversations like this one, that are recorded, broadcast, transcribed, shared, open, that anyone can join. Imagine a whole network of these, and that people can pop around and discover the different conversations in the network that are focused on different facets of saving life on Earth through this radical transformation. So Michael might get on and say, all right, all the spiritual stuff, that's all super cool, but I want to talk SRM. Who else wants to talk SRM? Well, Michael, there's these 17 meetings happening on SRM right now. Awesome, says Michael. I'm going to go to those. I'm going to see you philosophers later. I'm going to go straight to SRM, right? Boom. Meanwhile, somebody who wants to talk philosophy can go there. Meanwhile, somebody who wants to talk about veganism and ending world hunger and stopping the coronavirus simultaneously by delivering vegan foods to everyone's doorstep can talk about that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, let a million flowers bloom, let everyone go to whatever flower they want, and let them cross-pollinate. We become the bumblebees. The meadow of flowers is the network of conversations, and we bumblebee around from flower to flower,
discovering, trying out new things, meeting new people, and saying, wow, what a network of conversations I've discovered. All right. To quote Harrison Ford, Han Solo from the original Star Wars, when they end up in the garbage dump, and he says to Princess Leia, who led them there, "Ah, what a wonderful scent you've discovered," right? I want people to have that kind of reaction to, "Ah, what a wonderful network of conversations I've just discovered," right? Let me bumblebee around from flower to flower. And so it's really about the community. It's about, for lack of a better word, people like us who get it and get that we are right at the cusp of this radical transformation, right? Anyway, no one's in the queue. That's why I'm chatting away a little bit here. So if you want to talk, now's a great time to just jump in. And on that note, silence is also okay. We don't have to fill up the space with chatter. So I'm just going to mute my microphone. Let's have some moments of silence. I'm going to take a couple deep breaths, and would love to hear from whoever wants to jump in next.
All right. I have an idea I'd like to suggest to you all that I would like you all to support. I am going to read this idea from my ideological profile. And I'm going to share it in the description as well. And maybe we can discuss it because this is an idea that I want your support for the International Logic Party, so that we can realize this idea around the world. This is about animal liberation. I'm sharing the text right now. The most fundamental component of reducing overall violence and suffering in the world is to ensure freedom from captivity for all animals, including humans. To achieve this goal, no one should be allowed to hold captive any other animal, especially to breed them or to harm them at a later time. And then there are 2 links, please watch. There's a YouTube video showing a lot of animal abuse and factory farming. And there's also a link to a website, that's the Animal Kill Counter, that shows you how many animals are being murdered every second around the world. So this is an idea that I support within my ideological profile as a part of my political philosophy. And the more people who adopt this idea and include that in their political philosophy within Agora, the higher this idea rises on the index. And these ideas determine which political candidates the International Logic Party will nominate and rally behind to get them elected into governments around the world. So that's why it matters whether you support this idea or not, and actually help us build the International Logic Party. So would anybody like to comment on this idea? Would anyone, especially, I'd like your comments to be in the format of, if you agree with it, then tell us that you agree with it. If you disagree with it, let us know why. And if you can improve this idea, then definitely tell us how you think this idea could be improved. But yeah, if you agree with it, then please go ahead and support it, because that's the next step. If you disagree with it, is it because it's completely wrong, you think, or because it needs to be improved? So it's always a very constructive process. So I'd be curious to hear from all of you about this idea.
All right. Well, I agree basically 99% with it. And there's just some edge cases that I disagree with. Like, for example, certain human beings who are out there, killing or poisoning or raping or doing other atrocities, I believe need to be incarcerated. And we've talked about this a little before, so I'll let you address those edge cases, Cesare. And then another edge case is Like if there's a rabid dog running down the street, biting people and giving them rabies, obviously that rabid dog, would need to be detained or, captured, put in a cage and treated, et cetera, et cetera. But aside from those edge cases, I totally love it, right? In fact, it's only those edge cases that hold me back from saying, yes, full support. Going on.
Well, then let me respond and comment on that. So this is an idea. This is a specific line of text, and I actually wrote this. Nobody else was helping me. Somebody else wants to help me. Great. But the point is that this idea could have been expressed in 2 words instead of, I don't know, let's say 50 or 30, whatever it is right now. But it could also be expressed in 3 pages. It could also be expressed in 300 pages. In 2 words, it would be animal liberation. And actually in Agora, there is an idea that's simply animal liberation. Now, does it mean the same thing as what this says? Maybe, maybe not. That's left to interpretation. And that's the kind of interpretation that develops in our meetings that we have in the International Logic Party meetings. I think this idea kind of strikes a balance between, an idea like animal liberation, which also applies to criminals. Because if you support animal liberation, well, criminals are also animals. So how do we treat them, right? How do we give them their fundamental animal rights? So there is a lot to be interpreted there, and that's the part of that that collective superintelligence that we develop at our meetings. Now the way that I explain, so let me actually get to the point. So the way that I justify this idea, including humans, is that, right, there are certain people who are criminals, they break the laws. And I think the way that we should treat them is that if they want to remain as a part of our society, then they become institutionalized at a certain facility, like we call it a correctional institution that helps these people become functioning citizens again. So we train them to actually be good citizens, because otherwise, what the hell are we doing with them? If we're not helping them become good citizens. But the goal is that they eventually can come back to participate in society. But if they can't participate in society, and maybe they don't want to, then I think they should have the option of leaving the society and going to live in the wild. So I think we need to give these people an area in the wild where they can live completely freely and do whatever the hell they want, because that's their fundamental animal right. And of course, if they come back from the wild into society, well, we consider that an invasion, and so we probably just shoot them on the spot. But now, what's this wild going to look like? Obviously, basically what we're talking about is banishment. So we need to create an effective way to banish people while maintaining their freedom to live how they want, but not come back to our society. And so that's a longer. If we want to discuss that, how we treat criminals, and their banishment procedures, and then that's related to another idea that's also in Agora that pertains to the criminal justice system. So we address that kind of separately. But this idea here, mostly what we're talking about is farm animals. Really, that's the numbers. That's where the numbers are. And yeah, so if you look at that second link, that's the idea, that's the link about the animal kill counter, the animals that are being murdered for human consumption, that are being bred on farms. And of course, there are pets, but that's a whole other discussion. That's like a marginal compared to the animal slaughtered for food. That's a much smaller concern. And yeah, so this idea is interpreted on many levels. It's interpreted by individuals. It's interpreted by political candidates for them to articulate how they want to realize this idea. And it's also interpreted over time. At a certain point in time, we see that, this idea affects, the 99.9% of cases that this idea affects are the animals bred for food. The pets are like negligible compared to everything else. But once we free all the animals bred for food, then we can discuss freeing the animals who are held captive as pets. But that's a conversation probably to be had later on. when we liberate the billions of animals that are being murdered in factory farms.
Awesome.
Does that answer your question? Or
Beautifully, beautifully, beautifully. Now, here's, so I want to use your idea as an example to build off your previous ideas from several minutes ago about building out, this community and promoting these conversations. So let's say that there were two groups that were passionate about discussing your idea, okay, at two different levels. One group is interested in holding a debate, people who support that idea and people who oppose that idea. And let's have a debate. Moderated, could be more like a panel discussion, whatever. I could even moderate it myself, just to give you an idea. So they're there to debate that idea. Great. More power to them. They do that. They have that meeting. There's a second group that says, look, we're not here to debate this idea. This is a meeting for people who, two thumbs up, agree with the idea, and now we want to get it implemented in the world, right? So if you're coming here to debate the idea, you've come to the wrong meeting. That's that other meeting that I talked about a minute ago. That's the meeting to go to if you want to debate it. But if you love the idea and you want to support it and you want to see it implemented, you've come to the right meeting. So I just want to put that out there as an example, because here's the opportunity I'm seeing. That which I just said could constitute, now imagine there's thousands of ideas out there, or hundreds, or whatever number, right? And there's a bunch of meetings happening within our network. I want to know, okay, which are the ideas for any given meeting? Show me which ideas are, for lack of a better words, table stakes for this meeting. In other words, people in this meeting basically agree with all of these 7 ideas or whatever. Or a different meeting could be people who come to this meeting agree with these 3 fundamental ideas, and we're here to debate a 4th. So everyone in the debate agrees with A, B, and C, and we're here to debate just D specifically, right? Because you know how sometimes you get a bunch of people and they're disagreeing about everything, and it's just a total cacophony, just like a waste of time, right? Versus, hey, it'd be really interesting to get together people who agree that climate change is happening, it's real, it's exponential, it's urgent, and we're here just to debate about whether to do SRM or not to do SRM. That's it. That, for me, that would be a fascinating conversation, right? So anyway, I just wanted to use your example to promote this, a way of kind of parameterizing and structuring conversations so that, in a sense, we bound the debate and we create a common context that everyone agrees with. We agree with what we agree with, and we agree with what we disagree on. We also agree to disagree very specifically and to talk about that with a view to, and then what's the objective? Could be yet another parameter. Is the objective to settle the debate? Who's right and who's wrong? Or is the degree to come to a sort of a synthesis or a unification where we resolve our differences on a higher plane, which is my understanding of the definition of synthesis in that logical sense: thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Anyway, I've spoken enough for the moment. I'm going to go on mute. I don't think anyone's in the queue.
I want to comment on that.
Please.
The paradigm you're talking about is not what I'm talking about. So your framework is different. It's not. There are 2 kinds of meetings that we organize. One are meetings where anyone can attend, people for, against, curious, or whatever. Anyone can attend. If you have nothing better to do and you just want to hear something different, come and attend. We discuss a specific idea. So this is one idea. And that's kind of how this is. You just heard this idea. The next step is, it's not a group decision. It's an individual decision. What do you think about that idea? Do you agree with it? And then if you agree with it, then will you support it? Because when you support it, then we know that you support it. And we can see on the index that you've supported this idea. The next step is your decision. It's you. You are the next step. So do you support the idea? Will you support the idea? Or do you have a better idea? Or maybe this idea is just, maybe you agree with it, maybe you would support it, but it's just simply not that important to you. So that would be an exception under which you would not support this idea. So basically, the group never makes a decision in our meetings, because that doesn't mean anything. It's pointless to try to argue about that and try to get, let's get at least half the people agreeing with this idea. No, that's not the point. The point is to make this idea accessible to individuals and to get their support, people who are ready to support it, and then to present information to those who disagree with it. The other kind of meeting that we organize is when we actually have a political candidate, a candidate that the algorithm creates, and somebody who supports the most strongly supported ideas, and potentially multiple candidates. And those candidates decide amongst each other and answer people's questions about how they intend to implement those specific ideas. So that's the other type of question. We haven't had any of those meetings because we haven't had any candidates. But we're looking for some. If any of you would like to be a president or senator or whatever of your country, a prime minister or governor or whatever the hell you have, we need candidates, people who want to rise up and realize people's ideas. So that's your opportunity. And we will be happy to ask you questions about how you intend to realize those ideas, because that's our job. So again, we're back still to the starting point. What do people think? I don't know. Has anybody, since I presented this idea, has anybody logged into Agora and added this idea to their ideological profile? That's the thing. Because that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for your support. If you agree with it, if this idea is important to you, and if you're willing to support it because you don't have something more important, then please support this idea. That's the next step. And even if, like, here we have 7 people in this chat right now, even if 2 out of those people, or even if just 1 person, who knows, maybe Eddie is listening and maybe he actually goes and supports this idea. If I didn't persuade the rest of you, this meeting was still a success. I was able to reach out to someone. I was able to sell this idea to somebody. That's how it works. It's a very decentralized process. But overall, when you look at the stock market of ideas, a central pattern does emerge, because we actually see which ideas are supported most strongly. Nolan, you're just listening. What do you think about this idea? I don't know. I don't know if you registered for Agora or not. I can't remember. But this is an idea. Do you support this idea? If not, then give us a better idea. Maybe a competing idea to this one, or maybe you think animals should be held captive. Maybe. I mean, frankly, you don't have to express that as an idea. It's already happening. It's probably not necessary for you to do that. But I don't know. Do you support this idea, and do you agree with it, and will you support it in Agora?
And before Nolan answers, I want to point out 2 things. Number 1, Emery's in the queue, just FYI, but that's totally fine. You can ask Nolan a question. The second thing I want to point out, just as an administrative thing, it's perfectly fine for you to ask pointed questions of whoever you want. But as a rule here, no one is ever pressured or obliged to speak ever, whether in answer to a question or anything like that. It's totally fine just to hang out. I know Nolan knows that, and I think you also know that, Cesare. But just for people who are watching or here for the first time, please know this is not a place where you're going to be put on the spot and you have to answer a pointed question ever. Yeah. And as the moderator, I ensure that. Anyway, I just want that's all. Just a little detail, small but important. Nolan, back to you, and then Emery's in the queue. Let's not forget. Go ahead, Nolan.
All right. Well, more information since speaking with and listening to, especially Silas Rao, who's a friend of ours, who's actually presenting in 3 hours. And I also want animal liberation. I share the same concerns as Jamin, with the tendency generally to be a little overly optimistic about, well, I guess when asking the question, do we need incarceration at all? And so I have very similar feedback to what Jamin gave. And I think what I'm thinking about now is how, because and I'll speak for Jamin a little bit here and ask him to jump in whenever, but how we or I have been envisioning collective superintelligence evolving, the process. So I really liked your comment earlier, something to automate before we're talking about AI, right? There's some process we're doing manually that then we automate that. And
Nolan, just to let you know, sometimes there's some static on your, or like there is an interruption in the signal, and everything you say doesn't come through completely.
Well, yeah, anytime that happens and I start to sound delirious, just let me know.
Okay. I'll do this sign. I don't know. Okay, but go on. Yeah.
No, I think a hand signal is a great idea. Let's think about what kind of hand signal. Like static could be like something like this.
Yeah, I think
that's a good one.
Huh? Because this basically means a silent applause. Anyway, back to you.
Yeah, that's a good signal.
Okay, cool. Because what I'm curious how, when there's two ideas that are very similar, it seems like there's a synthesis between those two, that if you have people split between these two ideas, it's not really doing either group justice in the grand scheme of things. That makes sense? Because it, like, if 100 all essentially agree, so if 100 people, and I'm getting a message, my connection's unstable. If 100 people essentially agree, but they're all, nitpicking little aspects of it and end up generating 100 ideas that have one supporter each, then in the ecosystem, the like synthesis idea is not making it, I guess. And I'm curious, I'm thinking about, it seems to me that the way we go about resolving that is directly in conversation. I think that's pretty obvious. And that the process we do manually, as you're talking about, Cesare, that we eventually automate is what what we're doing right now. You've shared with us this very well structured idea, and our reflecting on it is data to be combined with the idea itself to be analyzed in tandem. So all of the past like 10 minutes of conversation, that all has a context which Cesare set, and that gives the AI something to calibrate to. And I realize I've gone on a tangential here from specifically animal liberation. Like I said, I'm like Jamin 99%.
Okay, I want to answer your point. You're talking about a topic that we've explored many times before, and what do I want to say? I think you think the problem is much bigger than it really is. The problem is actually not that big. To put it simply, yeah, if 100 people, well, if you have 100 people and they all support a slightly different version of the idea, but just 2 out of 100 or 3, or more likely it would be like 10 or 50% agree on one idea, those people win. And those people who cannot come to terms, those people lose. And that's exactly what we want to happen. Because those people who can come to terms, those people are rational. They're able to actually make rational decisions. They look at the big picture, not try to fuss with the small details. It's ultimately not about how an idea is written, but how it's implemented. Ultimately, it comes down to what the political candidate is saying about how they actually intend to realize that idea. So that's a whole other level of interpretation, you know? But this question will, but you will realize this much more quickly when you actually just try to express yourself with these ideas. And you will have a choice, will you want to write your own version of this idea? And feel free to do so. And actually the system accounts for you. You can support 2 versions of this idea. You could support 23 versions, actually up to 46 versions of this idea. Go ahead and do that. It would be a waste of space for you. It would be a waste of your resources. But if you really want to, that would be something an irrational person would do. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's how you lose your voice. And that is a good thing. But so anyways, the point is when you actually start to think about like which idea you will support, you will force yourself to make a decision. And by forcing yourself to do that, putting that constraint, you will actually try to make the best decision. When you talk about it abstractly, you'll never figure it out. Try to actually make the decision. Which idea will you support? And you will actually make a pretty damn good decision. That's the point. And maybe you'll support 2 versions of this. But the point is it's not as hard as you think it is. It's really not. But it does require commitment. It does actually mean you have to put yourself on the line. Like by exercising this power that you have, it comes with responsibility, because then other people will be able to look you up. Well, assuming you make yourself public, other people will look you up and be like, hey, well, let's see what Nolan thinks. Oh, Nolan thinks this. Let me tell Nolan why he's wrong. So you're putting yourself on the line against these people coming at you with criticism. But that's the price of the power that you get. And if you don't want that responsibility, then you don't get that power. And that's a good thing, because we don't want people like you to have that kind of power. So, but again, you'll see it. It's not that difficult to make a rational decision. And who knows, maybe you can actually improve this idea. Maybe you will make a version of this idea that just simply works better. And other people will be like, you know what? Yeah, this other version is better. And you will contribute. You will take that information and you will have built upon it and contributed more to our database, to our knowledge base, and to our community. Or maybe you will come up with this new idea and you're going to start telling a whole bunch of people about it. And they're going to be like, and everybody's going to tell you, no, this idea doesn't do anything for us. Maybe you're just going to say animal liberation. Because that's one way to look at this. We could take this idea as is, or just take the 2-word idea, animal liberation. And right now you can check which idea is doing better on the idea dominance index. Which one has more support? Which one has more points? I can tell you which one has more points. It's this idea. One reason for that is because it's not being promoted. The other idea is not being promoted as heavily. Why? Well, maybe because the person who wrote it isn't really that serious about that idea. Maybe because they didn't put enough thought and enough work into that idea. And it's a good thing that their idea is losing, because a shitty person wrote a shitty idea that they're not willing to back up. And they lose, and we're all better off for it. So the point is it's you, man. It's ultimately all about you. And yeah, Jamin, of course, this is the community that you create, the context that you don't put pressure on people. That's great. That's actually very inviting. It's a part of that inviting atmosphere. So technically, within the context of of what everything I'm saying here, let's just say I'm making a speech. Any question I pose to any specific person could be completely dismissed and overlooked. You could just treat this as a performance, and not as a solicitation for action, So you could totally dismiss that. But I'm hoping that you rise to the challenge and that you actually respond to it. But the point is what is your freaking philosophy? What do you stand for? Where do you stand? Or maybe you're not a philosopher and maybe you don't want to be a philosopher. But guess what? That means you don't get to unfuck the world. You just don't get to do it. You might get to fuck it up, but you won't get to fix it. The philosophers working together are the ones who are going to fix the world. So it's up to you. Do you take the responsibility and the power, or do you just talk about doing things and not do them? What's your idea? What do you stand for?
All right, we've got a couple of people in the queue. We've got Emery, who's been waiting patiently, followed by James. Go ahead, Emery.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Jamin. Cesare, listen, I'm listening to you all day, all morning, and I get it. I get where you're coming from, Let me say this, okay? I can support your ideas all day long, okay? They're wonderful, okay? That's fabulous, okay? I agree, okay? But how do you bring these ideas to the point where you can manifest these ideas in societies that make it so impossible to participate in politics? Okay, we can barely vote these days. Okay, it's all freaking scammed. We don't know if the votes get properly counted even. Okay, and finally all decision making, the decision making processes, who gets to enact the laws in the end? Okay, once you're in, how do you get in? Who's gonna vote for you?
Sorry, I have to tell you.
Is AI gonna vote for you? Is AI voting yet? I don't get it, man.
Have you not been paying attention?
Politics. Let me finish. Politics is so freaking complex. You got to be in every part of the country. You got to establish people. People have expectations. There's a status quo out there. There's a certain status quo, okay? And people are brainwashed, okay? They follow what's been established. It's not easy you're establishing something now here. It's great. Like I say, I can agree with you all day long, okay? But how the hell do these things get manifested, okay? In real life, in reality. Look, we don't have 10 years here, okay, to bring your political party to a point where we're going to elect you as president, and then we're going to get things done.
All right. Cesare, do you want to respond briefly? Because I also want to keep it flowing and hear from James and others. So go ahead, Cesare.
Gotcha. It feels like you haven't been paying attention at all, Imre. Yeah, we are. Yes, everything has to start somewhere, first of all. And again, the first point is you. The most critical point is that you actually know what you're talking about. Like, you can't change anything unless people cannot control their governments unless they know how the government works and what they want it to do. That's the first step. Like you have to do that. You can't talk about, oh, we got to do all this. No, you need to know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, start by knowing what the fuck you're talking about. That's what this is. Build your political philosophy. We build our political philosophies together. We show what it is together. And then we nominate the representatives of that and we support them. And we grow in the process. Stop worrying about other people. Worry about yourself. Do what you should be doing as a responsible citizen, which means develop your political philosophy, publish it, open it to criticism, and make it accessible so other people can learn from you, and then meet with other people to discuss your ideas. That's what we're talking about. You cannot do away without any of that. Like, this is super intelligence. That's how you really fix these problems. And all of these are fundamental responsibilities that you have as a citizen. It's up to you whether you neglect them or not, but I'm just telling you, these are the steps. If you want to fuck the world, these are the steps you take. You can't do any of this other stuff unless you take these steps.
Yeah, Cesare, let me just respond quickly here. What I'm not belittling the efforts that you're making, because it is a very positive thing that people get educated as to what is important in our world today, okay? And what kind of priorities we can establish, okay, to meet the needs of what is needed to proceed, in a positive way on this planet, all right? And that's a good thing. But there's certain things that are already established. And yeah, it's great that we're going to be more knowledgeable and more solid with our beliefs and what our understandings are, so that we can, go out there and vote for somebody who is going to reflect these ideas, okay? And we're going to be able to demand that our vote count.
Again, real quick, stop worrying about other people, worry about you. Where's your political philosophy? Because I can share mine with you. I can make it accessible. Within 2 minutes, you can start learning from me and you can start critiquing my philosophy. You can do that. And you can share your ideas with me and I can easily adopt your ideas. Where can I
You're
find
not
your
running for office. You're not running for any office, okay? You're not in government, okay? You're not the one making decisions. You're not pulling the strings there in reality, in real life today, to get things done, to make a law, to make policy, okay? You're not there at the front. I love you, man. You do it, but you're not there.
I need you to stop thinking like a slave. You are thinking like a slave. I'm not saying you are a slave. I'm just thinking you're thinking like a slave. Stop thinking like a slave. Start thinking like a philosopher. Those are your two options.
Okay, hey guys. I just want to interject. Let's hear from some other folks, and welcome Dharmendra, and welcome back Uncle Frank. And James has been waiting patiently. James, great to see you, brother. Go for it.
Thanks, Jim. Right. Okay. From what I can gather on here, anyway, there's just a slight bit of, for me anyway, there's just a slight bit of confusion with the understanding of Cesare's idea. So, like, I get where you're coming from, Saint Emery there, like, not to think like a slave. So, for me there, no, that frustration is creeping in there as well, because I would say no to Emery. I have an analogy there now of what Cesare is trying to present in my own way. I'll present it in my analogy so that maybe this will interject between both of your discussion there. For like, I reckon, Emery, you're still thinking on the paradigm that we live in at the moment with the political system we have at the moment, and we have to go out and we have to petition our governments to do what we want them to do, or to act in the right way. So in order to petition our governments and to get them to do what we want them to do the right things, we have to gain numbers. And once there's a majority of numbers fighting on that petition, then the government then only decide to act when they see the majority of people. So that's the way the paradigm is today. No, so step away from that paradigm is what Cesare is trying to get us to understand, and just say, as a people, we join on this forum. And the best analogy I have for it now is we just say, we got a block of wood. I'm going to give this a wood carving analogy. We have a large block of wood. We just say a tree trunk upright. And I go tackling at that, and I say, I think I see a beautiful statue within that statue, or within that wood. And I start chipping away at that statue. So I put my initial indent on that wood. So that would be, in essence, that would be my initial idea of the statue within that wood. But I get to a point where I'm frustrated with that piece of wood, or I get to a point where I think that's it. I'm happy with that suggestion, that indentation on the wood. But I open that up then to other people to come along and see if they can maybe chip away at that piece of wood, or if they agree with it and they like it, then that's the way it stays. But if somebody says, you could take a little bit off of here, or could maybe do this to it or do that to it, and somebody else comes along and says, I think it's beautiful as well, but maybe if you did a little bit of that and shaved a bit of that off of there, it would look a little nicer. And then you go, all right, okay, yeah, it would too. And then the other was, yeah. And then another person come along and go, yeah, I think that's a beautiful statue. And the other person come along and go, yeah, but what if we actually did something over here and we took a little bit off of that? What you think? Oh, that's actually better. So eventually what it is you have your initial idea, my initial indentation on the wood, which I was happy with, but opened up to other people to put their interpretation on it. And it was eventually whittled down to one fine piece of sculpture, one fine piece of art, one fine idea. And I get where Cesare is coming from. You put in your initial idea and you let people either agree with it, disagree with it, if they want, but add to it if they want to agree to a portion of it and add a little to it. But for someone else to come along then and say, oh yeah, I agree with that too, or maybe you could do that. The idea is that the idea is whittled down to its finite, and that all, when it is, the majority of people are behind that one idea. That's an idea you could present then to people that they really have no basis of an argument against. That's the way I see it anyway. So it will eventually eradicate the political system that we have, because that's the cause of our problems anyway, in a sense. Our way of dealing with decision making on the planet for the good of everyone. It's left in the hands of the few. It's needed to be put into the hands of everybody. So everybody has their input. Eventually the idea is whittled down to the right one.
Beautiful. Thank you, James. I think what might be productive is to kind of take a step a little bit back from the level of details and exactly how we do things, and talk a little bit more high level, because I really see a beautiful confluence between the structure of ideas that Cesare is promoting, and this kind of idea-centric approach, that married with the conversational approach that we're pioneering here. And to paraphrase what I mentioned a little bit earlier, is
one of the ways to parameterize a conversation, there's a lot of ways to parameterize a conversation and say, hey, here's what we're here for. If you want to join us, but here's what we're going to be talking about. One way is to simply identify the ideas that are going to be discussed at the conversation. Just identify them. We're going to talk about this and this and this and this. That's one simple way of parameterizing a conversation with respect to ideas. Another way to go a little deeper is to say, yes, we're going to be talking about these ideas. And these 3 ideas here are ideas that really present the foundation or the context for this conversation. Basically, those of us in this conversation, we agree to these 3 ideas. And then yet another way to parameterize it is we agreed with these, we disagree with these. And yet another way to parameterize it, and you could do all these parameterizations in parallel all at the same time, is, we agree with these, we disagree with these, and we're here specifically to talk about this other idea, but knowing what we agree with and knowing what we disagree with. So you can get as kind of specific as you want. And I just wanted to put that out there, and I'd love to hear other people's thoughts. And so no one's in the queue at the moment. If you'd like to be in the queue or you'd like to speak, just speak up. Great to see everyone. And we've got about 40 minutes to go on this conversation. And then at the top of the hour, we'll shift to a conversation on the divine feminine led by Melissa and Jackie and Myra. But so we've got a good chunk of time still to talk about this general conversation, which is awesome. We're exploring, and just to kind of back it up a little bit further, where we're at now, and this builds off what we were talking about in Dharmendra's meeting yesterday, in the meditation meeting, is the network of conversations like this exists. There's a lot of people out there in the world now having open video conferences talking about all of these things that matter, centered around saving life on earth and transforming life on earth, right? And so what we've been exploring here is, how do we take this very nascent sort of Wild West universe of conversations and what are we trying to accomplish here? And so Cesare had a great idea a bit ago about, hey, let's identify those conversations that are really radical, really transformational, and put together a list of them, or a directory, which could be organized by topic, right? It's just a starting point, right? And so our more recent conversations have been kind of more about how to structure that, how to parameterize it with ideas and whatnot. James, you've got your hand up. Go for it.
Yeah, sorry. Just on the point that I just forgot there when I was talking. Like, at the moment in the political system, you have if you looked at the House of Commons, we say, take an example now in England, or the Dáil here in Ireland, right? Or you have your Congress over. But I'm not sure what way that works. But basically, they're all the same. You got a bunch of politicians in there. They're all out to look after those who got them into position anyways. Those who they're looking out to pay back favors, mainly, is what they're doing in there. There are those in there then as well that are trying their best to look out for the people. Obviously, I'm not saying they're all completely bad, like, obviously. But the point is that you get a bunch of people inside in a room and they're arguing back and forth, shouting at each other, literally mocking each other, because this is televised. I mean, you could sit down and watch a whole day of the Oireachtas inside, or the Dáil episode inside here in Ireland, or you could look at the House of Parliament over in England and sit there. It's live televised all day. You could watch the whole debates about the way they're going about running the country. And they're to and fro. You could see the egos brimming inside the room, beaming back and forth with each other, slanderous remarks, like not slanderous, no, but to the point of almost slanderous remarks for each other, knocking each other, one party against another party, and all they see is that no matter what they say, we don't agree with it because they're not in our party. So fuck the idea. That has nothing to do with it. They're not in our party. That is not the way to run the system for people on the ground. People on the ground have basic ordinary values in life that they require, and they're not even getting them today. Like the access to free drinking water and medical care and all these things. That's not even happening today. And how long has the political system been running? For fuck's sake, it's about time we changed that. So all I'm saying is, what Cesare is presenting here and what you're presenting with CSI, Jamin, is the solution to all of the world's problems, the way I see it. There is no other way around it. We need the collective intelligence of the planet, and we have on an open platform where everybody can have their input. No, we can all go into different rooms and we can discuss the ideas that we're talking about, which is a brilliant thing. But where Cesare's situation platform comes in, the way I see it, is genius in the sense that, like what happened there now, for example, 5 minutes ago with the between Emery and Cesare. Emery is trying to understand the idea, and Cesare is trying to get it through to Emery. You know, and there's a little disconnect, and frustration can creep in with the disconnect, and then arguments can pursue in it, or you know, it can get heated, debate can pursue, and that's all that happens in these you know, government buildings. They just heated debate ensues, and nothing gets solved because it gets too hot and too explosive. We have to separate it, whatever. Point is, I always felt that if I had anything in my life that I wanted to say to someone, maybe if I had been, like I talk about, to a loved one or someone like that, and I've always felt like that perhaps trying to talk to them never really was the best approach. I've always found that if you write down what you really feel for that person and you give it to them in writing, then they have the time not to interrupt while you're trying to say it to them, whereas then conflict can arise. But they have the time to actually read your idea or read your thoughts. And then they're going to say, okay, I can take that on board now because I'm not having any confrontation at the moment. I'm reading his thoughts. And all right, I see where he's coming from. And then an amicable situation can arise out of that, or understanding arises over because it's there in text and you don't have any hostility. And I've always found that to work best. And that's why I was always comfortable with text messaging people rather than talking to them on the phone as well. I find that I get distracted talking. So I forget some things I want to say. So when you have the time to write something down, you put it down carefully and you think about it, because you have the time to think about it before you write it down yourself. That's very important as well, rather than blurting something out in an argument between two, or a discussion between two people. And then if it gets heated, people get frustrated, they don't exactly say what it is they wanted to say or whatever, and their exact point doesn't come out or doesn't come across properly. But if that person has the time to write their thoughts down for you know, as long as they want, take their time, write down their thought, write down whatever their feelings are, and put that in, and lodge that into the CSI then as your introduction to the platform. You're basically giving your introduction as to who you are, and this is my philosophy. Because the AI then can use that information straight away to direct you to the right way, places and people you need to be talking to. CSI can take over from there as well, but the platform that Cesare is presenting is also vital in the recording of these ideas. And as he said, the idea gets built on or accepted, but at the end of the day, the idea is the right idea, generally accepted by the majority, or if not all people, and that's the way to go. Obviously, Emery is concerned and frustrated about time, and I can see and understand his frustration. We don't have time for this, and we don't have time for that, and that's going to take 10 years. It's taken us a couple of 100 years with the political system we have today, and look at the fucking mess we're in, and we still haven't got time to try and fix that. There's no way of fixing it. Sometimes you just can't fix something. You have to scrap it and fucking restart again, and this is the start. This is the way to start again. This is the way to go. Shouldn't be any arguments in a sense that way, because everybody knows where everybody stands from the start. Thanks.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, James. Great conversation. Great stuff. You mentioned Emery, and Emery has his hand up. Go for it, Emery.
Yeah, okay. So let's say that, I end up in a position, a key position somewhere in local government or, statewide or, whatever. Okay. Any kind of a change that I would want to bring forward, okay, it has to be ratified, I mean, there are conditions that need to be met, before, a lot of the presentations can go forward, I mean, there are signatories, people, who's going to sign for it,
Sorry there, no, Emery. I'm just going to cut across you there a second, because again, there, no, like, again, no, you're going back to the old paradigm of political, the way it's political. You see, on this platform, if everybody has their input at the start, and then the ideas whittle down when it gets to the finality, there is no one has to sign forms. There is no system that you go to. It's an idea that has been collectively thought to be the right path to choose, and therefore there's only implementation after that. It's different it's a different paradigm you're talking about. You're on about today's paradigm. We're on about tomorrow's. Forget the politician and forget the political system that we have today, because that is not working. There will not be any presenting of this, and can you decide on this now? No, fuck that. They're not deciding. It's already been decided on the platform. The idea has been whittled down to the finality, and this is the way to go. And anyone that wants to object to it, put your objection on this fucking platform here, but it'll probably get right knocked down to the fucking bottom where you're supposed to be. We're going to head this way. What's on top?
Yeah, James, I see your point. I see your point, James. I see your point, but we're living in the now, right? Okay, we're living in the now, NOW, right?
Yes, we're living in the now, and we're now in the
right,
platform
right
here,
now, yeah.
Right now, we're changing the fucking now. That's what this is about.
Well, I'm all for change.
Changing the now. Well, if you're all for change, Emery, all I say then is, if there's and I'm being very, very, I'm trying to be very diplomatic in a sense now here, because you probably sense a little frustration coming on my behalf as well. Because if you're all for change, then we're in the now, and we're trying to discuss the change. So let's get on with it now and go forward. Stop bringing in the back paradigms and the past paradigms and the what if with this, what if we come across that situation? That situation's back there, look. We're left it behind. We're moving forward to a new position, and we can't do that without building it from now forward. So leave the past situation behind. All we have to deal with the past situation is, what were the fucking problems and what do we need to fix on the way forward.
I gotta comment on that real quick, man. Dude, we need you, man. We need people like you. We need people like you to speak to the people. And the beauty of this, and please forgive me for sounding rude. I know this is rude, but forgive me for that. The point is like, not everybody like Imre, or maybe he'll get on board, maybe he won't. But the point is, he doesn't matter. If we get people like you, like me, well, anyone else who sees what we see, exactly what you just said, if we get those group of people, even if we're 10%, holy shit, you can do incredible. The power that we can show to the other 90%, they will get on board with the rest of us. Hell, we can do that with 1% of the population, but that's exactly the type of thinking that we need. That's the future. Yeah. So, we don't need everybody to change the world. It's okay. We'll change the world for them. And then they'll see it as we grow. Then they'll see the changes that we're making happen. So that was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank
I'll
you.
vote for you, Cesare. I'll vote for you. Get
I
in.
just want to say one thing, Emery. By no means whatsoever there now was I being anywhere rude to you or anything else. I get frustrated when I see like, it doesn't matter why I get frustrated, but all I'm saying is that
It's all good, James.
the past is behind us. The only thing we need from the past now is to learn from the mistakes and go forward and change them. That's it. Simple as
It's
that.
all good, James. You know, I get it. All right, but I'm not here to dilly-dally. Okay, we got serious SRM to do. We got to save life on planet Earth. Okay, and I got no time to play around with politics, man. I really don't. I really don't. I think we got to get to the now of the matter, okay? And we got to sink it in the heads of those who are in power now, those who are pulling the strings, okay? We have to get the message put through to their heads, to their brains, to understand what we need.
The only way you're going to do that, especially with some of the world leaders we have anyway, is give the whole lot of them a fucking lobotomy. So that's the way I see it. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, we have the social media. We have social media. We're here to use and manipulate social media to
change things,
to
and
work
move
for
forward.
us, and to make things happen. Okay, and for that we have to make connections with people who are on the same wavelength as we are.
Well, Imre, I just want to let you know I disagree with you about your set of priorities. I just disagree with you. What you think is it's the priority, I really actually give two shits about that.
Good luck with that.
But with Igora, we can help us find our collective priorities. That's about us finding what together we value and actually basically finding our priorities together and focusing on that. So,
all right, gentlemen, love the discussion. I just want to throw in something that hopefully might be a little bit of a synthesis that might help us come together. But first, I'm going to respond to something that you said, Emery, and Cesare. Hopefully this will make you smile. So Emery, when you said, I want nothing to do with politics and we got to do this, I want to solve these problems, cool the planet, etc. I'm going to make a cartoon analogy. That's like, all of us are standing in front of a burning building, a 5-story building with children up in the attic. And we're like, we want that fire out. But you know what? I don't want anything to do with fire trucks or hoses or ladders or, anything like that. Good. I made Cesare smile. That was part of my objective.
You made me laugh too.
Okay,
you
good.
Made me laugh too.
Good. And the underlying point of all this is, if you want to make any changes happen here on Earth that are big and meaningful and radical, there's no way you're going to get around politics. We need politics. Now, is the fire engine broken? Are the hoses frayed and have holes in them and there's not enough water pressure? And are the ladders rotten and you couldn't stand on them to save your life? Okay, that's all true. Okay, but if we want to put out fires, there's no way we're going to get around fire trucks, hoses, water pressure, ladders, etc. Okay, so we need to reconstruct politics. What Cesare is doing is something super ambitious to not just reconstruct politics, but create a whole new foundation for reconstructing politics, which is very, very analogous. In a lot of ways, it's very different, has different focus than a lot of stuff we're talking about here. But what we have in common is we're all here to create a whole new foundation for moving forward. And I'll just requote the quote from Abraham Lincoln. If I had 6 hours to chop down a tree, I would spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe. So what we're doing here in these meetings, we're doing a heck of a lot of axe sharpening in these meetings. Dharmendra has his hand raised. Go ahead, Dharmendra.
Yeah, I always like to bring it back to the essential point is that in all this conversation, if we're not, the whole reason for this in the first place is we have leaders that are fucking as asleep as it gets. And they're so asleep and they're so unconscious and they're so unaware and they're so selfish and they're so shut down and they're so caught up in their little clubs of whatever elects politicians, really the powers that be or whatever. So that paradigm is dying, and it's dying, and in its death gasps, it's doing all this stuff that it's doing right now to create all these control trips that aren't going to last, they're not going to work, because the power that supports them is disappearing quickly in the big picture. The thing that's going to move us into the future, and that is going to create a collective army of intelligence, if you want to call it that. That's my new term for what we need to rule this planet. You know, has to come from people who have a deep experience of their own inner being, of their own, you know, who they are and what they're about, what they're doing here, and what it is to be a human being. And they've spent many years looking into that, and then seeing how that relates to every facet of life that we live out there in the world, and how it reflects back to us. Because to me, if it's not rooted in all that, then I don't care what your ideas are, and I don't care if you think you got the right ideas or this or that. They're all meaningless unless you, in your actions, can come from that meditative space with it. Because you may have great ideas, and they may really be the best ideas in the world, but if you're cramming them down somebody's throat or saying, I don't care what your ideas are, mine are better, I know the answer, that right there that's not very deep and very meditative. That already is a red flag that you're saying you're coming from a place that isn't. You're not doing what you say. You're pretending something that you can't stand behind because you're not owning it all the way. So I see it all the time. I see it, and it creeps out here and there. That's why my focus, first of all, is let's get grounded in who we are and what our reality is. So, and wake up, because without an awakened team of people to push forward these agendas that bring us all together into a collective consciousness, you know, it's just going to be, we're going to try something new at this in the same old way, even with the new ideas, that it's just, again, we're just playing with ideas. It's got to come from a place deeper than the mind. It has to come from a place even deeper than the heart. It has to come from our being. And that's going to take some work. There's no way around that. You can't just jump into that and go, I got the best idea in the world. And even if you do, and even if you are meditatively advanced, then everybody else has got to join you with that. That's why my emphasis is on when I share my awakening, I want everybody else to step in that space and share their awakening, not just listen to me and go, oh boy, he's really awake. That's stupid. And that's the old way anyway, where the one guy gets up on the stage and I'm the big badass teacher and you are all asleep. You got to listen to me. And even if I don't want you as followers, you're still going to have to do what I say if there's any hope for your awakening. That's kind of the message that's always been put out for millennia. But that's not anymore. We need to all be together and on this. We need to all step into our own awakening and own it. And then we need to be open enough that everybody's ideas are valid. And we need to create something. Nobody here's got the best idea. I don't care what you say. You ain't got the best ideas. Sorry. Ideas are a level of consciousness that ain't as deep as higher consciousness. Just ain't going to work. So you have to come from that place of higher consciousness. Out of that, higher consciousness says now in a collective awakening, let's all get together, all share our best ideas and create something out of that. Everybody's idea is valid if it's from your heart, from your being, from a deep space of awareness and experience of who you are and what you're doing here on this planet. Otherwise, it's just another great idea that's ideologies right now. Look at the ideologies running this planet. We need to come from a deeper place than ideologies. It's just obvious. We have to come from a whole new type of psychology. You know, you can call it a psychology, the esoteric, you can call it whatever you want. Esoteric has a weird, but to me, esoteric is spirituality lived in practice through your words, your deeds, and your thoughts. That to me is what esoteric means. So it's like, that's what we need to start bringing to the table. And so everybody, anytime somebody says, I'm right and you're wrong, then we need to go deeper than that. Because nobody's right, nobody's wrong. There's parts of everybody that's right and parts of everybody that will filter out that we don't need. So we can take the best of everybody. That's how it's going to work. That's the only way it's going to work. We take the best of everything from everybody and we create from that. Because no one person is going to come and say, I got it all, I got the right answer, and that's it. You're going to have to just accord everything you do to me then go back to the medieval times or wherever that consciousness is coming from. That consciousness is dying. That's what's dying on the planet now. That's how we got into this mess. That's the masculine fucking attitude of patriarchal, suffering that's caused all this. We need to grow up. We need to all realize we're all in this together. We're all grown-ups. We're all going to join hands, and we're all going to share our best ideas and take the best out of that and make this work. That's how we have to do it. That's simple. There's my politics. Start from there. And then we can create a politic that's an enlightened politic instead of some fucking ideological thing. Ideological things are. And philosophy, love of wisdom. that when you get the essence of what philosophy is, the love of wisdom. And what is wisdom? It's experience with awareness. You've been through experience totally awake. That's how you get wisdom. You have to go through the experience, and that's everything I'm talking about right now. With your eyes wide open, with your ears wide open, with your senses, all your senses wide open. And constantly be recording that and have a group of people where you can give feedback, where you can share, where everybody can put in their knowledge into this pool. So to me, what we're creating this network for is that to begin with. So we have a pool to draw from, where we can take the best of everything. We can toss it around, but not too much, because it's going to be obvious what's going to work, because it's going to work. It's not like we need to wait around and see. Things that really work seem to work right pretty quick. So that's one way of testing it, is just by putting it out there and seeing how it works. Anyway, I just want to throw that in, because otherwise we get off the track and then it's this guy against that guy, and that's not what we're here for. That's not going to work. That's the old way.
Beautiful, Dharmendra. Oh my goodness. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All righty. James has his hand up. James is the only one in the queue at the moment, so feel free to jump in the queue. Take it away, James.
Thanks, David. Yeah. Thanks, Dharmendra. I agree with that. A lot of that there now as well. I mean, especially like it has to come from our spirituality has to come from our ideologies has to come from our spirituality and what our essence really. So like my idea, everybody is I know it's something I used to say anyway. We're all products of our environment. And so therefore, it's our environment that dictates how we grow up and how we're influenced and how we end up initially, in essence, thinking about our environment around us. Our immediate environment is usually the case at the start, and then when we get a little bit more, we spread out and branch out to what's going on in the wider environment and everything else. But our experiences in life are what makes us, in other words, is what I'm saying. So I agree with what you're saying. But like an ideology or someone's ideology or somebody's thought, everybody's thought is valid, and you're right there as well. And everybody should have an influence. That's the problem that we have in the world today, is that not everybody has an influence. The majority of us are following the influences of others who are ramming ideas down our throat, as you said. And that's the beauty of this platform. That's the beauty of what Cesare is presenting here, is that nothing has been rammed down anyone's throat. That you are entitled to present your ideas, and you're entitled to agree and support ideas. And only, as Cesare pointed out, support the idea if you're willing to stand behind it. Don't support it just for the sake of it. Support it if you're willing to stand behind it, or if you're willing to stand behind it and even add to it, because it gets to the finality. So that is the beauty of this. It is going beyond the politics of today, and it is going beyond the system that Emery refers to, which we all desperately want to change early. So yeah, it is the beauty of it. That is the way to go in the story. As you said, the platform is here for us. We just need to push forward now.
Beautiful. Wow. I feel like over the course of these conversations, we're getting clearer and clearer about what there is to do and what there is to create out of this vast network of conversations, which is now so happily in existence, right? I feel like a kid in a candy shop, right? Prior to the coronavirus, I felt like a kid in a desert where there's no candy for miles around, and I'm just dreaming of candy. Now with the coronavirus, several weeks into the, a couple of months into the crisis, I feel like a kid in a candy shop, because there's conversations everywhere happening about this on video conference, many of which are now public that anyone can join, like this one. So the idea is catching on of a network of conversations that anyone can join. So again, the metaphor is a vast meadow with 1 million different flowers on it. And each of us is a bumblebee going from flower to flower. When we land in the collective intelligence block party flower, we see, oh, there's 8 of us here. Oh, wow, cool conversation, cool people. I like this flower. Hey, I just heard about this other flower over here where it's Cesare and other folks talking about specific ideas within Agora. That's a great flower. I'm glad I learned about that. Oh, the Forsyth Institute in San Francisco is a different flower that's having daily meetings on the crisis, etc. Well, let me check that one out. So this meadow with 1 million flowers, we're all bumblebees, and all the flowers are blooming and growing, and bumblebees are going around and cross-pollinating. That for me is just kind of like a beautiful, simple starting point upon which we can then overlay a whole bunch of stuff, right? And what I'm inspired for going forward is let's both talk about that meadow. Let's talk about this more beautiful world our hearts know is possible. And I think that meadow can be kind of like what the forum was to Athens in ancient Greece. This meadow can be for the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible. That public forum of myriad conversations that you can pop around. This is where it's at. And it's out of this meadow that the new politics is going to spring forward, right? The forms of the new politics, the structure of the new politics, and yes, the transitional pathway from the current broken politics to the new super cool politics. So anyway, just trying to, the new pollination, writes Emery, which sounds like a mashup between pollination and the new politics. The new pollination, yeah.
Hey, Jamin.
Yes, Dharmendra.
We should, I just got this weird hit when you were talking about creating this bot that's able to roam. And it's able to roam from your meeting onto the internet and in places, and then it will of course have to make it so people have to define their meeting as either open or closed. But all the open meetings, they can go in and start, how to say it, picking up information from those meetings, and then having like a central server database, just for data to offload that information and keep it user ready at any moment, but continuously and really fast, because of course it can, we're talking billions of bits a second these guys can do. So it can scan an incredible amount of open meeting spaces, And I mean, it could already start being like a prototype already instead of waiting for this huge, but that would take quite some development in itself just to create a bot like that. It could have that capacity, but I know we have the technology to easily do something like that. That would be a piece of cake. But anyway, just throwing that out, just popped into my head to already begin to, because I know that as we start to blend more and more the meditative awareness with all these practical contingencies and concerns, we're going to start popping into some new ways of thinking, and that's certainly, these are the kind of, I never would have thoughts like this before until I met you. So obviously something is getting in there and transforming, blending together. So just to throw it out there, because I think that might be a direction to begin to start create a database that we've been talking about so much. Anyway.
Yeah, totally. We're definitely converging on this idea of a database, a directory, something that's searchable, explorable, etc. And to mention something that we discussed earlier in terms of like bots and automation and all that, a point Cesare made is that a really actually proven pathway to get there to this automated future is to start paradoxically by doing it manually. Start by doing it manually, do it manually, do it manually. In the process, we learn what we want to be doing because we're hands-on in the moment, looking at all these connections and possibilities. So we get really good at doing it manually. And as we do it manually, two things, then we know what we want to automate. And B, by keeping all the data of everything that we're doing, everything we're posting, everything we're transcribing, etc., we actually create a wonderful database for the AI to model off of when it seeks to automate, because it can learn what we're doing through our own actions when we were doing it manually. Now it can just say, hey, I can automate that for you, right? So for those two reasons, which are of fundamentally very different nature, it makes sense to do it manually first and then automate. All righty. Well, we got a few more minutes to this conversation before we invite the ladies to take center stage and lead us in a conversation about the divine feminine.
Well, it's actually about transformation.
Okay, sorry. It's about transformation, but the context is the divine feminine leading the transformation. Would that be fair, sweetheart?
It's just about transformation.
It's just about transformation. All right. Well, I've proven the need for the divine feminine to take center stage because, anyway. All right. Anyway, that'll be in a few minutes. Meanwhile, more comments. And maybe let's, and welcome back, Brett. We've been having a super cool conversation, which we're wrapping up in the next 5 minutes. Cesare, you got your hand raised. Go for it.
Sorry, I'm going to be swallowing as I'm speaking. I'm going to be getting out of here in a few minutes, actually. So, like I said, I'm organizing the meeting on Sunday, and I'm about to get to some serious work to start promoting this meeting online. So I'm going to be inviting people. Of course, all of you are invited to the Sunday International Logic Party meeting on Zoom. But the one thing I want to say is, you know, with the Block Party, I think we should be creating a community of people so that different people who are organizing these things, they want to come here, they want to come to the party, they want to say what they're doing, tell other people, build a network of people who are connecting all of these content creators. And then, basically create like a cultural hub. Well, really have, you know, just where content creators and people looking for content can come and hang out. And, you know, and then as this develops, then yeah, you could look at automation of that. But I really like this idea of having actually a centralized social space, so that you're not just actually using a search engine to find stuff, that you kind of have like a cool place with a bunch of cool people hanging out. And they can tell you like, hey, so what are you into? And they tell you what you're into. You tell them what you're into, and they're like, oh, you should check out these people. And, you know, these people are doing something that might interest you. So that, you know, instead of interfacing with a search engine, people are actually interfacing with this, you know, with a community, with a culture, with real people who will just send you the right way. And then, then you can have a presence online and have that presence be automated somehow. That's to be discovered, you know. Anytime there's so much in product design that's gotta, you know, starting with the MVP, see how the MVP works. I mean, yeah, that's the other thing. I never heard that phrase being mentioned here once until I mentioned it. But what's the MVP of you know, of the thing that you're talking about?
Remind us what MVP is, please, Cesare.
Minimally viable product. So like the most basic version of whatever technology you want to create, something that will begin to serve, you know, what the needs you have at the moment, before you spend a lot of money on developing all kinds of features that might not work and people might not use. I mean, that's very important for saving money and proving a concept. So, but yeah, yeah. Well, I'd love for that to happen. I'd love for this place to serve as a way to begin connecting people. Like I said, I'm a content creator as far as these meetings, so it would be great, you know, to have a place to send other content creators to, some of my people who are participating in my meetings, if they want something else. You know, we do heavy intellectual stuff. We do philosophy. We talk about economics, but maybe they just want to do looking for something else. And I can tell them, hey, go to the block party. There's a whole bunch of people hanging out, you know, 24 hours, anytime. It's always open. The cool people hanging out, inviting to everybody, and then they can come and hang out here for a while, talk to some people, and then eventually find the niche that they belong in. So anyways, I think I'm rambling, but I think we can start that now.
Well, you know, I think a minimum viable product is starting to emerge just from these beautiful meetings that we're having, where we go deep into all this. And here it is, real simple. Number one, have a core series of meetings that just provide a gathering place. Like the block party for me is kind of a prototype of that, because it's a 24-hour long meeting. Show up anytime, just like you said, Cesare. It's friendly to all time zones around the world, does not discriminate. And then look at what's happening in these meetings. In these meetings, we are surfacing and talking about other meetings that are happening, including yours, Cesare. And so the next step in the MVP process is to go from talking about these other meetings to creating a list. Let's call it Jamin's List, jaminslist.org, right? Like a Craigslist of freaking, look, that's a perfect example of someone who started with a minimum viable product. What was his technology platform? Oh, was it HTM, this, that, XYZ, no. It was email. Homeboy emailed around a list of events and other interesting stuff going on in the Bay Area in the late 90s, and he called it Craigslist. Simple as that. And then he made a website. Oh, a website. And it was simple. A bunch of links. You click on the links and here's a bunch of stuff, whether it's events or cars for sale or somebody's used underwear, whatever, right? And it was categorized and it was super simple. So welcome, Maida. Welcome, Natalie. Welcome. I don't know how to pronounce your name, but feel free to say it. It starts with a B. Welcome, everyone. We are at the top of the hour, and it is time for us to shift gears. I am super grateful for the last 3 hours. Wouldn't trade it for nothing. And we have got a really solid basis for going forward on that minimum viable product for collective superintelligence. So we'll pick that up again later. In the meantime, Nolan has something quick to say, and then we're going to turn it over to 3 amazing ladies. Go ahead, Nolan.
I just wanted to ask you to start a new recording.
Thank you. On it right now. Okay, stopping the old.